Questions, please. Here.
Very quick one. I've heard several people mention GDPR and leaving the European Union.
Sorry, can you repeat that so everyone else can?
Sorry, I've heard several people mention today they don't know what's happening when we leave the European Union, if we do. I thought the government had made it entirely clear that we were adopting GDPR and the new Data Protection Act, draft of which has already been published. And that there was no doubt that we would be adopting it anyway.
I'd assume at the moment we will just, at the very moment in time, yes, until we hear what happens later. At the moment, GDPR is going to happen. It's due in the 23rd of May, and I think we need to make sure as organisations that we are prepared for it, because that is what's going to happen for the UK.
Okay, Bill, did you want to make a...
Yeah, I think we comply with it.
Can you speak into the mic, please?
Yeah, we comply with it through the transition phase, but it's not been agreed what happens after that. And that's a great worry for business. To have a hard border on the transfer of data will make it very difficult in the UK. So I think the UK is trying to align its data policies with the EU, but there's no guarantee in there at all at the current time.
Thank you. Next. Anybody? Anybody? In the middle.
Yeah, so my question is, there's a plethora of threats out there, and we've heard about ransomware, which is a really old threat, as we heard from the earlier speaker from the SEC. So what, from the panel's perspective, what's the biggest threat, do you think, in terms of cyber and the evolving landscape that we're in?
From my point of view, I think, yes, the ransomware is a big threat. It's not the only threat out there. For me personally, I think the issue that we have is where ransomware is getting more weaponized. It's now evolving to a degree, utilizing many, very, very advanced techniques that, unfortunately, the majority of the organizations aren't available to understand. My biggest concern when we look at stuff like ransomware is, again, I spoke about it briefly in my session earlier today, is when we look at stuff like NotPetya, WannaCry, and so forth, it's their evolution of utilizing advanced techniques to spread themselves. We've seen them doing credential dumping through Mimikatz. We've seen them using like PSExec and WMI calls to spread themselves. These are very, very advanced techniques that organizations have no way of defending themselves against. Most organizations would believe it to be normal administrational capabilities. That's my worry, is the fact that we are seeing old techniques getting very, very weaponized by advanced people with, advanced capabilities. And unfortunately, the majority of organizations have no way to defend themselves from it. I also believe the use of exploitation code. We, unfortunately, have made it apparent that we are not patching our systems quick enough, where these exploits are able to work several months, years later, even when we were warned about it, many months before. Over and time again, the bad guys are able to utilize these exploits, and we are still sitting back with an idea that we will not be affected. But again, luckily and unluckily for some, those recent ransomware scares or fake ransomware scares has proven that we need to do something.
Well, I'd say a large-scale data loss is probably going to have the biggest impact. When you think about it, that the sysadmin has complete control of every single email and can walk off site with an SD card with every single email that has been sent. So it happened with Sony, and it's happened with many companies. Data is worth much more than your credit card information. Healthcare data is worth 10 times the amount that your credit card is actually worth. So I would say a large-scale data loss. Your ISP is logging every single transaction that you do. Imagine all your transactions of all your family, your kids, every website that you went to, all those unfortunate times that it was a bit difficult. All that information, if Google was to be hacked, how embarrassing is that, and how much could you be hacked for? There was an example of a company who were selling fake degrees, typically to medical staff, and the Indian company wasn't making enough money, so they decided to then bribe the people to say, we'll tell your company there was a fake degree. One person paid, I think it was $500,000 to stop that from happening. So data is king, And I think a large-scale breach will cause devastation to the public sector and trust.
Thank you, Bill. Patricia.
So I'd just add to that briefly. I agree with what's been said, but actually the biggest, a big threat is that companies are still not doing the basics, the very basics. So there's a lot of scary stuff coming, but they're making the mistakes that any halfway intelligent teenager could hack through.
Thank you. Thanks, Tess.
I recently downloaded memory forensics tools, and I used them on my own machine. What an eye-opener that was. In the advent and use of those sorts of tools in use in hands that may be malicious or used against you later, or the data set that creates, what do you think about how that should be managed or deleted or looked after? And nothing in this GDPR thing has talked about the NIST directive, which I think is as serious and significant, if not more so.
So I'd actually say that, unfortunately, the bad guys have known about memory forensics for a long time. It's one of the mechanisms they use, for example, on point-of-sale devices. They will actually take credit card data from the American point-of-sale systems because it hides it in memory. If you look at a lot of modern malware, they will utilize the memory to hide themselves. And memory forensics is a vital component of any kind of digital technology to be able to detect those kind of threats. Unfortunately, memory is how the operating system works. And I think to be able to protect ourselves from the bad guys trying to take data from those areas, we need to kind of, again, take a few steps back and make sure that they aren't able to get onto the system. Because in the day, to get access to memory, you have to be on the device. So we need to make sure that our endpoints are locked down. We have the correct security stack on those endpoints. And again, those endpoints, no matter where they are, on our network, off our network, in a Starbucks, in a hotel, it needs to have the exact same security posture wherever it is. And unfortunately, a lot of us focus on perimeter, not endpoint. So treat that endpoint as like your network and make sure you've got the correct stack of security solutions in place to make sure people don't have access to your memory.
Okay, it's just gone 5:15, and there's a drinks reception in the main room. I think I'd like to draw the conference to a close. First of all, you've all got a feedback form. Grateful if you could fill that in and hand it in to Tess as you leave. Secondly, I'd like to say a few thanks. Firstly, to the exhibitors. They pay to exhibit, and they support the conference in a big way. Thank you, all exhibitors. You've made a valuable contribution. Thank you, speakers, who have been very hard to control. Had to red card 2 or 3, but they've been rich in content and information. I'm grateful for your contribution. They're not all here, but on your behalf, thank you very much. To Manchester United Stadium staff, who provide the facilities, the food and everything. Without them, this wouldn't happen. To IMM staff, who have organised this conference, put the agenda together and dragged me out of the wardrobe once again to chair. And particularly to the AV staff, the little Rachel in the corner there, who's been managing all the slides. Thank you very much indeed. And thank you, delegates, for joining this conference. I hope you've enjoyed it. It has, from my perspective, been a really good conference, full of valuable information on topics we're all going to face in the future. A very important announcement. On the 15th of March, this company will be running another conference like this at Prospera House in London on the 15th of March. And Julia Sarge has been commissioned to be part of that conference. I will be subjecting Julian to some very provocative questions. I suggest it's a conference you shouldn't miss. Finally, at 6 o'clock in the morning, I shall be jumping on a Ryanair aeroplane and flying to the Canaries for some sunshine. And I wish you all the best in this lovely weather. Thank you all again.